Thank you so much for taking the time and tuning in. I appreciate it immensely. So this is the spiritual dimension of wellness, one of my faves ever. And um, something that kind of came through that I was wanting to speak about or share about, and I would love to have your thoughts. So please feel free to comment at any point in the comment section, and I can go back and read them, which I like. So do that. Do that. I'm not telling you what to do, but it's a request. Anyway, so I want to talk about grace and gratitude. I don't feel like they really go together very much, but they both start with a G, and I was like, apparently I want to talk about both of them. So hey, I am. So I want to share how I, when I discovered grace. Nobody on. Every time. Every time. Every time. So weird. Anyway, that's also weird that I have like this one really long hanging curl. I don't. Anyway, so grace. I remember this one time I took a road trip with a dear friend of mine who is a blues singer, and she was going on tour through Tennessee. And so she had some gigs in Knoxville, in Nashville, and in Memphis. And the Memphis gigs, where there's like this yearly blues festival that they do, and it's just like people from all over come, and it's this really big thing, and like everywhere is like music all the time, and it's really cool. So I went on tour with her, which was just fun. It was so cool and got to meet so many people, and I got to stay with different people. Many of the places we stayed were just like a friend of a friend. Um, so maybe she didn't know him or I didn't know him or we kind of knew him. And it was a really beautiful experience. And during the course of the experience, I was in, side note, I like to sleep comfortably. I've learned this about myself. I'm okay with it. But I do like to be comfortable because if I'm not physically comfortable, I just don't sleep. And if I don't sleep, then I don't function as well. My mental functions diminish. So I like to at least get like I can get a little bit of sleep as long as it's good sleep, or I can get a whole lot of really crappy sleep, and that's not fun. So anyway, so the first place we slept, so grateful for this couple, and they smoked cigarettes in the house. And although they didn't smoke in the bedroom that my friend and I stayed in, when the heat kicked on, because this was winter, it was very fragrant cigarette smoke. And I remember leaving and my hair was clean, but I could smell it, that like cigarettes, ashtray smoke smell, and it was in my clothes. And I was like, oh, okay. So then we go to Nashville and we stayed at an Airbnb, and it was so fun. It was like this little rock star house with a stage, and like everybody came and the bands were playing in the house. It was so fun. It was so cool. And um, there were nights that like I was ready to go to bed because I go to bed early. I wake up with the sun. That's what I do. I wake up with the sun anyway. Doesn't matter when I go to bed. So I like to go to bed early so that I can get enough sleep. So anyhow, um, so there were many nights that I was like, I'm so tired and I'm ready to go to bed, but I can't. Or I would be hungry and I needed things, but I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to be too high maintenance. I was moving through um, perspectives of myself that weren't healthy. So I was having a challenge in communicating my needs. So, I'm aware now. I wasn't at the time. So anyway, so we leave that place and then we go to Memphis, and we got to stay in this someone's condo way high up. You can see down over the city. It was lovely. And I was sleeping on the sofa, which was fine. Wasn't the most comfortable. What was challenging though was sleeping on the sofa when the other people in the house, the condo wanted to stay awake and be with the lights on and drink and socialize. And all I just wanted to do was sleep. And I had a really hard time asking, like, hey, would you be willing to be quiet? Um, and just all this stuff. It was a really big challenge for me. But what I learned was grace in Memphis, right near Graceland. And what I learned grace to be on that journey was space and boundaries, meaning I wasn't stating my boundaries, I wasn't stating my needs, and I was feeling uncomfortable because no one was honoring my boundaries because they didn't know them. So I was getting more frustrated at them before I understood that it was in myself, that I wasn't, that the reason they weren't honoring my boundaries is because they didn't know. Not to the extent, I mean, I probably glossed over it and I was like, man, I'm tired. Can you make the light not as bright? But I wasn't really like clear and say, hey, I'm really tired. Can I go sleep in your room until you all shut the lights down and I can go back to the sofa? Like, I didn't say any of those things, right? So I learned on that journey that, you know, I need to stand up and say, hey, I need this, or this doesn't align for me. This doesn't feel good for me. Would you be willing to do this so that I can be comfortable and you can still enjoy your time? You know, that's grace. That's grace to me, is asking and stating those boundaries, asking for what I need, declaring the spaces of this is not good. Boundaries. Grace to me is boundaries. And it's giving grace to ourselves by being like, wow, that's a boundary. That's a no. That's a yes. And offering this grace as space as a boundary to others, right? Because grace to me is like offering someone the space to feel their feelings, right? So in that situation, um, I'm kind of like turning it around as if I were them and someone else was me, you know, giving that timeline of me grace and being like, wow, she's feeling it. I accept that she's feeling upset and accept that she's feeling frustrated, and like offering that grace to anyone who's in that position of like just not doing well, not feeling well, being tired, being angry, being sick, being ill, being whatever. Like offering people grace gives them the space to feel whatever it is they're feeling. Meanwhile, having boundaries, right? So, say you come to someone and they're a grumble butt, right? They're just mad. They're just mad at the world. Whatever. You can give them the grace to feel that. You don't need to change that for them. You don't need to tell them how different they need to be, how they'd feel better if. And the boundary of that space that you give them says, and you're not going to project it onto me, right? I'm not going to interact with you in that way because that doesn't feel good to me. So now I'm offering both parties grace and space, the space of grace with boundaries. So I learned that, so that I wanted to share that because I feel like as we continue to move into this future unknown, without the ability to give ourselves grace as we continue to recognize parts of ourselves, recognize parts of the system that are coming to light for so many for the first time, to give ourselves grace as we navigate the feelings of maybe being confused or angry or duped or hopeless or helpless or whatever, just be able to give ourselves the grace and give others grace that people are just going to be feeling a lot of different things, right? And also have boundaries. Like, you can feel that way and you're not going to yell at me about it. And be understanding if you're expressing a thing, right? I'm just so mad at the world right now or whatever. That if someone says to you, I understand, I hear what you're feeling, and I'm not in a place to hold the space. I'm not in a space to listen to you anymore. and be able to understand that, like, oh, my way of being was just crossing their threshold of their abilities. There's no judgment to any of that. So I'm just feeling this deep call to share how important grace is always, especially I think where we're moving, to be able to give our to be able to give ourselves grace and others. And then I was like, why is grace and gratitude coming in together other than both being G's? Oh, G's. When I think of gratitude, right? It's being grateful for everything, the good, the bad, right? What we do want and what we don't want. Being grateful for everything at all. And that can be hard sometimes if you're trying to find and feel gratitude for something that you really don't like. Ew, right? Like it was really hard for me to feel gratitude for these people when they're pouring another drink and they're getting louder and they're laughing and I'm just laying there on the sofa with the light shining in my eyes and I'm trying to sleep and like it was real hard for me to feel gratitude for that. However, looking back, I can find a lot of gratitude. One, because I learned a lot of lessons, but also because I had this dope ass experience of being able to stay in this beautiful woman's, like, super talented musician and just everything in her condo, like, for free. Like, how grateful of an experience and an opportunity is that? Like, what a gift! That's so amazing. It was hard for me to find it then. Don't get me wrong. But to be able to find the gratitude of like, okay, well, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it gets hard. Like with this, some of the things that are happening on the earth plane, it's kind of like, well, at least we have water. At least we have clean air. Oh, like it is getting tough for me anyway. I can still feel and find gratitude for sure because I'm alive and I have a body that gets my ass out of bed. Some days it's easier than others, but either way, I'm really grateful for it, right? So I can still experience gratitude. Um, but I feel that if we can experience gratitude and grace, then that space that we're giving others to feel their feelings with boundaries, if we have gratitude for it, then the energy that I'm sitting in gratitude is a different energy field. It feels different, right? And that supports life on earth, right? Like if I can be in joy, I'm literally supporting the energy field of earth in joy. If I'm feeling anger, I'm adding more anger into the field of consciousness on the earth plane. So if I can feel gratitude, I'm adding gratitude into the quantum field of the earth plane. That's awesome. What a gift. And if I can do that while I'm hearing someone um, in their pain or suffering, or if I'm witnessing it, if I can hold that gratitude that I get to experience, I get to hold space, I get to witness what I like and what I don't like, while offering grace and having boundaries. And when I state my boundaries, I'm going to state them from a place of kindness, compassion, love, acceptance. If I can express boundaries from that place, it doesn't come off as like a hard, like, back off, I hate you. It's more like, oh, I love that you're sharing that. I'm not capable of listening right now. Can we table this conversation? I'd like to hear you sometime. I don't have the space for it right now. That lands a heck of a lot softer than shut up. I don't want to hear that. I've heard enough of you, right? It's not being graceful in the communication. And maybe that's what that maybe being graceful is being in grace and gratitude at the same time. Maybe that's how we actually embody grace is through the field of gratitude. Because I guess I can give others grace all day. I'll let them walk all over me. I don't really. I used to sometimes. And then sometimes I would stomp over everybody else, like whatever, depending on the day. But I guess if we are really offering grace, that the way that we would communicate gracefully would really help to be in gratitude, you know? Like straight up gratitude. Grace and gratitude. I guess when you put them together, if they make a baby, a grace and gratitude baby, then that's like embodying it. And then I feel like if that's the case, that it's not as easy for people to encroach in my boundaries. They don't cross my boundaries so much because I'm holding this energy field so big of just like grace and gratitude that like my boundaries would just naturally be more honored, and I would just naturally be intuitive and pick up on others' boundaries because I would be able to feel it. Like if I'm holding grace and gratitude and like as my embodiment, as I'm being and thinking and doing and speaking and seeing and all that, then if I go up to someone, I can feel if they're like not in a space of gratitude or grace or kindness or goodness or love or whatever. And then I can, oh, it's okay, I can back off. Or I can transmute it just in my presence, right? Because that's what we do, because we're just made of energy. I feel that grace has been like talked about in religions and stuff. I'd love to know your all's thoughts on what grace is because I never really grew up with conversations around these things, what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, what it looks like in action and inaction. No, like I don't know. I can look up the definition of grace all day and it only kind of touches on a little bit and so what is grace to you? How do you embody grace? How do you speak with grace? I had this image of grace in my mind at some point that grace itself was feminine, right? That it was just like um graceful, like dancing, like ballet is graceful, you know. Like I find break dancing graceful, the way people like move and spin and like walk on their hands and do these cool tricks. I see like aerial silk stuff, that activity, that's graceful. Ice skating is graceful. So I think of activities and animals that move gracefully, and I guess graceful would be with ease, right? When I think of like clomping or like river dance, when I think of river dance, I don't necessarily think graceful, but yet I kind of do just because it's like they don't move their upper half, but their bottom legs are just going nuts. They only have bottom legs, they don't have top legs. You know what I meant. Anyway, um, so like I think of graceful being with ease, and I guess if I'm being in gratitude, then whatever I'm delivering is going to come out more easeful, because I'm not in resistance to it. I'm not mad at it. I'm not hating on it, right? So, yes, I'm glad I said that there. So grateful for that water. Um, but yeah, I guess grace, when grace feels like ease, especially if there's gratitude with it. Yeah, I feel like one with the other just amplifies each other. Like grace with gratitude amplifies grace. It amplifies the gratitude. Because then it's like if I feel gratitude, but I'm also like giving myself grace, like I'm really grateful for this, and I don't like, I'm really grateful that you're giving me this chocolate vegan gelato. Yum. At some point, I got to give myself the boundary and be like, I don't want any more. Right. But I don't want to just be like, okay, I'm so grateful. I'll just keep eating it just for you. No, like I'm going to need to say no at some point. So if I can say no and still have gratitude, that's key. I think that's key. It's really interesting. It is not even getting that dark out, but the way the lighting is like on here, the way like everything about me looks darker. Like, what? My hair looks darker. It looks like I colored it. I didn't. Conversation whiplash. I do that a lot sometimes. I do that in my head. Y'all ever do that? Where you're like having a conversation with someone and like in the middle, you just lose your train of thought? Y'all, and I hold so many like groups and ceremonies when it happens to me. I'm like, damn it. And I'm usually someone will be able to pick me right back up and it's so cool. I just noticed that all the spraying that they did today in the sky is like finally was starting to dissipate and I was starting to see the blue and I can see the lines where they're spraying way up there because there are two lines like going this way and then a third line kind of like crossing it. Kind of over this stuff, y'all. Not gonna lie. Kind of want to turn this lamp on, but I've learned that if I turn this lamp on, then it's like super bright. So we're just gonna leave it and we're just gonna call it like an ambient lighting, okay? So thanks. Hang out in what seems to be the dark. It's not that dark out. That's the thing. So weird. Anyway, the lighting in the room, I guess. Anyhow, I'm grateful. Anyway, so yeah, I'm curious what grace is to you all. And how can we just be more grace? How can we speak more grace? How can we share more grace in the world? Like that's I feel like we need it and I still haven't even like grasped it. You know, I feel like grace is something that for me, it's almost like this thing outside of myself that I haven't formed a really uh, graceful relationship with because I tend to be very blunt, very direct, assertive. Um, I've gotten much better asking for my needs and I don't sugarcoat it or butter anybody up. I just say, hey, can we do this? Or if someone asks me to do something, if I can't or I don't want to, I say, no, I don't want to. Thanks for asking. And that feels very direct for some and I'm saying it in so much joy, gratitude that they asked. And yet there's this part of me that feels like I'm not graceful. I'm curious if anybody else feels like that. Or like is it just in the programming that we're supposed to speak a certain way, but it's not really it's just like beats around the bush so much that we kind of miss the mark on really offering true grace to ourselves and others, which would then stop the fullness of gratitude if I'm editing my grace unless I choose to be grateful for my inability to offer grace. That's kind of weird. Like, I'm not grateful if I'm having a hard time loving. You know, I'm not like, oh my God, I'm so grateful I can't love you. Ugh, that doesn't feel good. But I can be grateful to learn. I can be grateful that I'm learning how to love more. Anyway. So yeah, thanks for like listening to me like go through that just thought process about my relationship with grace and how I would like to have a deeper relationship with grace. So I have a deeper under and inner standing about it, you know? Um, I'm sure that there are verses in the Bible and other texts about grace that I have not uh, come upon yet. I'm open to it. So if you know any, please let me know. Send me a direct message. Comment on here. Tag me. Like tag my name if you can, like Jane. That way I can like it'll send me a different type of a notification. Um I don't it's easier for me to check the YouTube, couldn't think of the word, comments. So if you catch this on YouTube, it's easier for me to catch the comments. Facebook is not as easy for me just because I'm about to take it off of my phone. Yeah, for now. It's taking up space. I don't want to get a new phone. Y'all, these phones are expensive. I'm grateful that I have a phone and I'm so grateful that it works and it has enough storage on it in this now moment. But yo, phones are expensive. And each time they give you that update, they don't like take the other updates off and replace it. They just keep piling it on. So then there's all this storage that's being occupied. It's weird. Anyway, let me know your all's thoughts on grace. I would like to dive more into it actually when I'm back from the Central America. In fact, the expansions will be the first class back, so I'm really excited. So my first class back will be March 16th. That'll be me back at the Promise Resource Network in person. I'm really excited. So please come to that, y'all, at 10 a.m. I would love to have you all there in person um, to welcome me back so I can see everybody because I love y'all. Anyway. So yeah, I want to sit with grace. I'm gonna contemplate grace, and see how much gratitude I can wrap around instead of the arms of grace. Wrap my grateful arms around grace and see how I can dance these two together because I'm curious, right? It feels like an ascension, a next level of my frequency of like my being. Like, can I be more of that? And I can be because I'm curious about it. So anyway, hear a lot of sirens out there right now. Anyway, I love y'all so much. I'm gonna hop off because now I feel like it's getting dark for the screen and I need to turn this light on and it's blinding. Kind of want to show you. I will, and then I'll say goodbye. Ready? I feel like it's gonna be really bright. Ready? Right? It's like a sun. And then it just changes. Oh, look, I'm turning blue now. Whoa. Maybe if I sit behind it or put it behind myself. Okay. I love y'all, and I'm really grateful that you tuned in while I've been out of the country. I really appreciate it. Um, I appreciate you just being on this earth journey with me and testing out this ride of life. It's like a roller coaster. But yeah, I love y'all and I appreciate you tremendously. And I look forward to returning back and seeing all of your faces in person and to seeing you all pop up on the digital realm to say hey and all those things. So I will see you all soon.